Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you today to Asa Abloy Academy's virtual instructor-led program, Master Key in Basics. For about the next 45 minutes, we're just going to talk a little bit about some master key and terminology, some labeling. We're going to talk about restricted and patented key control and why that is needed. If you notice on your tools bar, there's a Q&A tab. While I'm speaking, if there is any question you may have, anything you may want to know more of, please just type it in. And when I get to a certain point, or it may be right away, I'll go ahead and answer the question. My name is Guy Robinson, and I'll be your virtual instructor today. Also, within about 24 hours of the ending of this class, you'll receive an email with a certificate of attendance. You can use that if you require certain CEUs or certain attendance for work, but it'll give you that you attended a 1 hour class. Also, if you would like to review this class again, the class will be it's recorded, so it will be available for you to view. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, hopefully, at the conclusion of this presentation, each attendee will, you'll be able to label keys with the correct blind code. Many of you have seen that on the back of keys before, AA1, 2AA, A2. So we're going to go over what this means. We're also going to, at the end of the class, I hope you're going to be able to explain, once you look at a blind code, where that key fits in the hierarchy. Many of you may be asked to design a master key system for a building. We hope that you could present a clear plan for the master key and needs. Hope you can break down and label a key to understand the levels of keying, how you can understand whether it's a 2-level, 3-level, 4-level system. And also, if you're going to design a master key system, or excuse me, not design the system, but design the labeling of the system, determine what level to use. Now, we don't have a lot of time, and what we're covering, we also can go in depth. When our instructor-led training is able to resume, hopefully in the near future, within the next few months, things seem to be opening up around the country. I generally teach a full day class on labeling keys and designing small systems. Hopefully, you will be able to attend one of those. Okay, so we'll get started, and we're going to discuss exactly what we mean by master keying. So, what do we mean by master keying? Well, one thing about master keying is it's a system of organizing numbers. Another thing is we group locks and keys with master keying. And we got locks or groups of locks that can be controlled by more than one key. But the one thing that we have to realize about master keying, once you master key a cylinder, that cylinder is not as secure as it could be if you only had one key that fit it. So once we master key a cylinder, we have weakened the security of that cylinder. However, we have made it more convenient. So we always have to keep in mind that the reason why you want to become a stickler for master keying, to making sure that things are labeled correctly, to make sure that the bidding list that we'll talk about is followed, is because you are systematically destroying the security of the cylinder. So we want to bring a minimization to that destruction of security. Now, what does master key provide? Well, your master key system will provide a separate key for individual locks, if you so choose. Can also provide a single key for all the locks in the system. That is actually called our TMK, our top master key. Now, we don't, there is a top master key always, but at one point, you have to give the top master key a name. We're going to be going over that. You can have different subsets of keys to operate smaller groups of locks. Master keying, you are organizing the whole lock and key system. And like I said on the last one, where it's controlled destruction of security of the cylinder, the one thing you do get is convenience over the security. And we're going to discuss why that is momentarily. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about terminology. One of the most misused words is in Masterkeying in the lock and door industry. People have developed, especially locksmiths, and I know I was in that arena for 27 years, develop sometimes their own slang. And that's a little bit dangerous when, not dangerous, but it's frustrating when dealing with factory people or people who learn master keying correctly, is they're throwing around a slang. So it kind of behooves everyone, if you're going to be in the lock and door business as a project manager, as a distributor, as a locksmith, as a facilities locksmith or institutional locksmith, you want to make sure that you get the correct terminology in place. So when you are talking to other people, you're all on the same page when you're discussing your needs. So let's take a look at a little bit of terminology. Now, the term key different is before you master key any cylinders. Now, key different is at one end of the extreme. This is the most secure your facility will be when all locks are key different. As you can see, just on a small scale, we've got 6 rooms here, and they're all key different. This is highly secure, but guess what it's not? Highly convenient. Now, it doesn't matter on a 6-room building, that's not a big deal. But if you're talking about a school campus, a hospital, a large business office building, multi-story high-rise, if every single lock was key different, that is not convenient at all. Secure, not convenient. Now, the next item at the other end of the spectrum in keying is everything is key to like. And as you can see here on a smaller scale, 6 doors, all key to like, highly convenient. You had a hospital, a school campus, a high-rise office building, and everybody had the same key. Boy, that's really convenient, but it's not secure. It's highly insecure. So here you have 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, highly secure, highly convenient. What we want to do with Masterkeying is we want to bridge and create a balance. Think of a balance beam, like a seesaw between security and convenience. We want to level that out, and most places do not mind giving up a level of security as long as they're getting back a certain level of convenience. The thing we want to do with a proper master key system and proper labeling is we want to control the amount of security they have to give up. Now, moving on with more terminology, you heard me use the word top master key, or TMK. There's always a top master key. Now, Depending on the system you have, a 2-level, 3-level, or 4-level, you have got to give that top master key a name. In a 2-level system where you just have a master key followed by change keys, that top master key is called a master key. In a 3-level system, the top master key is called a grand master key. And in a 4-level system, the top master key is called a great grand master key. Are there higher levels? Yes, they are. Yes, there is. Should have used a little proper English. However, over 90% of your systems will be 4 levels or less. So once you get above 4 levels, the lettering or numbering changes, and that's for a different class. But the vast majority of your systems are going to be 4 levels or less. Now, your change key, that is your bottom level key. That is the key that only fits that lock. There's two words for that key. Most people know it as a change key. If you deal with Sargent lock sets and you're talking to the factory, you will notice that the Sargent factory, they call it a day key. No one knows why. It's just one of those things that have been in existence a very long time. And one thing about a change key, and this is very important to remember, a change key always begins with a number in the case of a 2-level system, or if it's a 3-level system or higher, it ends in a number. Does not matter what the letters are. If you're looking at a label and you have letters in front of a number, that is a change key. It doesn't matter if it's A1, AA1, ZA2, GGMK1. It's a change key. That's something that you always have to keep in mind, and we're going to cover a little bit that in the more in depth in just a moment. Now, another term is called single keyed differently. Single key differently means that cylinder cannot be part of the master key system. It has no master key can fit it. It has to be completely removed from the master key system, but you still want to keep track what that opening is keyed to. So you will label it as single key differently 1. And if you have multiple ones that require different keys, the next one would be SKD2 followed by SKD3 and so forth. Now, why is single key differently so important? Well, one of the reasons is by federal law on commercial buildings, there are 2 types of openings by federal law that must be single key differently. The first one is a pharmacy. And by pharmacy, I don't mean just your neighborhood pharmacy. If you have an opening, if you have a room in any facility, in any commercial facility, school, university, large office complex, and you're housing narcotics, I'm not talking about locking up aspirin or cholesterol medicine. We're talking about housing narcotics. That is considered a pharmacy room, and you have got to have that off the master key system by federal law. The second type of opening that has got to be on single key differently is any room K through 12 that has national testing. If any of you were in the locksmith business or are still in the locksmith business, I remember when different schools used to call me out during certain times of the year and say, hey, please come rekey this door. It cannot be on the master key system. And at a certain point, I'd have to go back and put it on back on the master key system. Well, that's when they would receive tests in. While the tests were being housed in that room by federal law, that could no longer be on the master key system. Something to keep in mind. If you're dealing with residential, many are residential customers, HUD properties, housing urban development properties, cannot be master keyed. Something to keep in mind. Now, there's another term called NMK, not master key. Well, this is kind of the same as single key differently, except this is for rooms where you're not master keying it because of accountability reasons. Let me give you an example. A teacher is going into their classroom, and that classroom door that allows the teacher into the classroom is on key AA1. It's a change key. It fits that teacher's classroom, but any master key of it can work that classroom, and naturally so. However, there's there's a closet in the classroom, and the teacher keeps petty cash, is responsible for petty cash in that, and keeps it in that closet. Well, the teacher doesn't want anybody else going in the room in that closet unless he or she would know it. So you have two choices for that closet. The first choice is put it on a single key differently key. Okay. However, that's not that convenient for the teacher because now the teacher has to carry two keys. Or you can label that cylinder AA1 and in parentheses put NMK behind it. That means when pinning the cylinder, the factory will only pin the cylinder to the AA1 key. No other master key will fit it. Now the teacher has convenience back because he or she only has to carry one key, the AA1. However, people with master keys can only get the classroom. They're not able to access the closet. Next is construction master keying. Construction master keying exists because buildings do not go up in a day and there are stages. Once the envelope of the building is complete, contractors want to keep everything inside secure. However, the building owner does not want them to have keys to the facility. This can be accomplished by installing construction cores if the building is going to be outfitted with interchangeable cores or removable cores. You may know them as SFIC or LFIC. The construction cores can be different colored: blue, red, green, yellow, meaning they're construction keyed, and the keys who fit the yellow, one key fits the yellow cylinders, fits all the yellow cylinders. But this is just so the contractors can lock tools, materials, secure the facility while they're working there. Once they are finished, a representative, the owner or the owner's locksmith, walks around and takes all the construction cores out and puts the regular cores in. However, that works real well with removable or interchangeable cores. What happens if you just have conventional cores in place? How do we set up construction master keying? There's actually two types of methods for the factory to set up construction master keying. The first is called the lost ball method. Now, the ball acts as a master pin, allowing the construction master key to operate the cylinder. While the contractor needs access, they can walk around and use their key. Once the contractor leaves, depending on the manufacturer that's used, an individual from the school or a representative from, I shouldn't have said school, from the facility walks around to each cylinder that is construction master keyed and either puts in a ball removal key or a master key, turns it, and in some manufacturers, the little ball will get caught. You see right here in the opening that I have circled, or some manufacturers like Yale have a hole cut out in the bottom of the cylinder. The ball completely falls out. So once the little ball is gone, the contractor's keys, the construction keys will no longer work. We've got to remember that this must be set up on new systems. You cannot add construction master keying to already existing systems. If it was added in the beginning, you could, but if you're going behind someone that the system's been set up for many, many years, you just can't say, oh, by the way, I want to add construction master key into this, because that won't work. Now, because you're using up a certain amount of changes with that construction ball, you've created shear lines using that construction ball, you could lose up to 40% of your theoretical change keys. Now, most of the systems, you're never going to get near using all of your theoretical change keys that are available to you. However, if you have a very large facility, you want to always have master keying of the manufacturer that you're using in consultation to make sure you're going to have enough changes later on if you're going with construction master keying. So we got to remember, it's only available in new systems. It's got to be factored into the bidding generation. You could lose up to 40% of the theoretical change keys. Okay, so we realize new systems only. Now, what if I had a system that was already in place, but I need to use construction master keying? Well, we have what's called the split key method, and it's exactly how it sounds. The split key method is the act of cutting the key in half. It's wise to have the factory do this. Inserting half the key into the cylinder, and the contractor uses the half connected to the bow to their key. Once the job is finished, a representative from the facility or their locksmith or maintenance person walks around with the half key removal tool, puts the extractor into the cylinder, and pulls the half key out. Once the half key is pulled out, the half a key that's attached to the bow will no longer work. Hence, you've removed the contractor's ability to enter those openings. Now, you heard us talking about bidding list or using what the facility generates. This is what a bidding list will look like. When every master key system is designed, this is what's handed to the end user. When the project is complete, the keying is complete, they're handed their new keys, they're also handed their bidding list. The bidding list will tell us the key number, the change key number, AA1. The location is the science room. It goes to room 100, followed by the biddings. You see, those numbers stamped on the back of the key are called a blind code. More specifically, it's called the BHMA blind code, Builder Hardware Manufacturers Association blind code. This is a national standard, and I'm going to tell you why it's a national standard in just a second. So your bidding list is very important, because if someone finds a key on the ground, they pick the key up, they see DH2 on the key. That means nothing to them. If they turn the key in, it may not mean anything to the person they turned the key into. But when it gets back to the person in charge of the bidding list, the person in charge of the bidding list looks at the key, walks over to the bidding list, will know exactly where that key goes. Now, here we're going to get to those numbers and letters that we've been talking about. Key symbols: BB2, A1, GGMK1, AA21. Every one of us has seen these key symbols on keys and sometimes on cylinders. When you see them stamped on keys, that is called visual key control. When you see them stamped on the face of a cylinder, which is, I've seen it many a times. There's certain manufacturers especially on interchangeable cores that used to stamp the markings on the face of the cylinder. When it's stamped on the face of the cylinder that you can see it when you walk up to the cylinder, that is called visual key control, or the acronym VKC. However, if I don't want people seeing that on the face of my cylinder, I can always have it stamped on the back or the side of the cylinder, whichever the manufacturer does. But you have to ask for that. That is called CKC, concealed key control. So everyone has seen these numbers and letters together. A lot of people do not realize that all these letters and numbers mean something. But a lot of times, a lot of slang has slipped in, and people aren't fully aware of the meaning, so they get a misunderstanding of the type of terminology that should be used. So I'm going to go into why these came about. Now, the reason why this came about was, if people, just real quick, I'm going to cover this. If people are using bad terminology when talking about key labeling, that's because key labeling, the BHMA blind code, the national standard, has not been out that long. To some of you, it may be long, but in actuality, it's only been out since the early 1960s, 1961, 1962. So that means, I'll give you an example. The locksmith that taught me, I started in 1976. The man who taught me became a locksmith in 1925. So here he was for 50 years, a locksmith, and the blind code system did not come about until 1961. So for close to 40 years, locksmiths were using their own slang and terminology. All of a sudden, this comes about, and now there's a national standard. So it really wasn't their fault that their own terminology was invented, but it does need to be corrected. So that's why we go over to key labeling terminology. So let me give you an example. The old method, room 100. This is how factories would receive a key in list. Room 100, the CEO, the manager, the supervisor, Miss Betty, housekeeping has to get in. Okay. Room 101, the CEO, the manager, the supervisor. Oh, Miss Jane has to get in this door. Miss Betty can't get in this door. And housekeeping. Well, if you're just getting a few orders for this, you will see that it's not too bad. But when you're receiving thousands of orders like this, you can see how it can get out of control pretty quickly. Now, it's fair to say that throughout the many years since the pin tumbler cylinder was patented in 1844, there were many attempts to come up and call Masterkeying different things, label the keys different ways, but there was no standardization. people were doing it different ways throughout the country. So because we were keying the building to people, there came in the industry, there needed a standardization. So a company in California, and I believe it was Schlage, put out a call to all the different manufacturers and the people who were responsible for keying and master keying and developing master key systems, and said, we're going to get this straight. We're going to get together and we're going to hammer this out, and we're going to get a national system for key labeling. Well, we've all heard that saying that 90% of success is just showing up. Well, after putting out the call and deciding to have this meeting, only one person showed up. And that happened to be Tom Hennessy. He worked for Russwin at the time. Tom Hennessy was a brilliant engineer, brilliant man in the lock business. In fact, he started the Locksmith Museum in Terryville, Connecticut. Some of the hardware that you use today, Tom invented. Well, one of the things he did come up was what's called the blind code system. So since he was the only one who showed up, this system was developed. Let me give you an example. Now we're doing it differently. You see below in red, this is a 4-level blind code system. So if you're the CEO, you get the Great Grand Master Key. If you're just a floor manager for that multi-story building, you get a Grand Master Key for that floor. If you're just a supervisor for a certain, maybe 6 or 7 different people in an office, you can have a master key to that group of locks. Miss Betty, since you only need to get into your office, you are issued a change key. Housekeeping, there's certain locks that housekeeping has to get in every day to clean, or maybe it's maintenance to fix things. You can have a selective master key. So what we have here is, instead of keying the building to people, we are now keying the building and issuing access on a needed basis. That's what the blind code system did for us. Now let's take a look at this. We're going to talk about the different levels of the blind code system. A 2-level system has a master key followed by change keys. If you're a locksmith, many locksmiths, this is the vast majority of their master keying jobs. They go to a house where there's maids. They go to a restaurant where there's just a few different areas and the owner just wants a master key, but give everybody the different keys to their area. Is a 2-level system. Now, if you'll notice, a 2-level system is the numbers come before the letters on the change keys. The master key is denoted by 2 letters, in this case, AA. And since this is a 2-level system, the master key is your top master key. That is the name of your top master key. Let's take a look. We have AA is going to be our top master key. First office is 1AA, 2AA, 3AA, 4AA, 5AA, 6AA. Now the owner of this particular building, this particular area, is able to use their master key to get into all the different offices, but each person who occupies the office has their own key, and 3AA will not open 6AA, 2AA will not open 4AA, and vice versa. Everyone has their own key. Going forward to a 3-level system, we can see that we have AA is a master key, and you'll notice once you go 3 levels or higher, the numbers come after the master keys. After the letters. However, we have another facility that needs a two-level master key system. AA is one two-level master key system. AB is another two-level master key system, which creates a third level. You move up in levels when you have two or more of the same level. This case, we have two-level master key systems. They are connected by a single top key. So in this case, my master keys and then my grandmaster key connects both facilities. Building 1 is on AA master key. Building 2 is on AB master key. But I'm connected by a grandmaster key, A. Your grandmaster key is one letter. Let me give you an example. Multi-story building. First floor is AA, with AA1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the offices. Second floor, AB, with AB1 and 2 through 6 for the offices. Anybody in AA master key will not work anybody in AB. AB will not work anyone in AA. However, there is one key that connects both of them, and that is the grand master key. Let's take a look at the four-level system. We have a grandmaster key, A. However, we have a grandmaster key, B. We now have two or more of the same systems, which creates a higher level, a GGMK. When you're thinking about master keying, the hierarchy of master keying, just think of Lord of the Rings. You have many rings, but one ring to rule them all. No matter how many levels you move up, you're always going to have a top master key. My double letters are master keys. My single letters are grand master keys. And my top master key is a great grand master key. Now let's break this down a little bit so you can see how keys fit in the hierarchy. Let's take BA1. So we'll see the hierarchy of how this breaks down. If I remove the 1, I'm left with BA. That means my BA1 is a change key under the BA master key. If I remove the A, that means the B grandmaster key also works this opening. And of course, since the GGMK is on the top, the GGMK will operate the opening. Now let's take a look at this. A1. What kind of key is this? Well, it's a change key because it ends in a number. But what will operate this key? This key, once we remove the number, this key will only be operated by the grandmaster key and, of course, the great grandmaster key. This is called a change under the grand. The individual master keys will not operate this. This type of opening is usually found on data rooms, electrical rooms, and those of sorts where you want to limit access. The middle master keys will not work. Now, we have another one. This has become more popular, and I'm going to explain why, is the great grand master key 1. Well, that's a lot of letters in front of that number, but it doesn't matter because that ends in a 1. That means it's a change key, but it's a change under the great grand. Where do we use this at? Well, one place it's being used a lot at is It's used on doors with networked access control. End users pay almost $5,000 a door to control access and audit who is going through the door with their access control cards. Now, one thing that operates a door that you have no idea who walked through the door is a key. It works 24/7 and it does not leave an audit trail. Now, we could actually key that opening to the great grandmaster key only. However, we have key bypass on access control because the access control may go bad on that opening or break and need service. So if a technician comes to your facility, do you actually want to give them the great grandmaster key to the whole facility, or just give them a key that fits just the access control doors? You can give them the change key that fits the access control doors only. They can do the repair work, and you didn't have to worry about them having a top master key to the facility. Plus, you don't have to worry about your access control doors being operated by any of the middle master keys, grandmaster keys, or change keys. Let's take a look on how we use this. We have a great grandmaster key. This is a university. Universities are typically under 4 levels. My A grandmaster key will work the science building. And in the science building, we have physics, which would be under the AA master key. We have biology, which would be under the AB master key. And we have astronomy, which would be under the AC master key. So the people who are in charge of physics can operate both offices. People who are in charge of biology can operate both offices. Everyone has their change keys. The people in charge have their master keys, plus there's a grand master key for the entire building. The same with the liberal arts, but we'll put that under the B grand master key. English is BA, drama is BB, and sociology is BC. See how these break down, and you can keep total order by making sure you label the keys correctly. Now, we have some unauthorized letters that you don't use in Masterkeying. Letters I, O, Q, and X. We don't use I, O, and Q because they look like numbers. It would be confusing. We don't use X because X has other meanings. If I put XAA2 on how I want a cylinder keyed, the factory's going to say, oh, he wants that cross key, meaning he wants keys that are not supposed to work the lock to work it. So if I'm ever going to put X in front of a label on a cylinder, I have to give an explanation. So the line would say XAA2, and I'd put operated by GGMK, A, AA, AA1, and AA3, meaning AA1, AA3 change keys and AA2 change keys will all work that one opening. You have cross-keyed that opening. Cross-keying, it has got to be controlled. If you do it after the fact of designing the system, you have got to be very careful because can be unintentional keys that will work it. When the cross keying is controlled and it's designed at the level when they're designing the system, then you can control the cross keying and you won't have unintended consequences of keys working it that's not supposed to work it. There's another term in Masterkeying. It's a very old term. It's called X1X. It means that the cylinders are operated by all keys in the system. Okay, why would I want all keys in the system to work? Well, for convenience, and generally you didn't need much security at that opening. Let me give you an example. An entrance door to an apartment complex where there's 50 apartments. Each person who has a key to their apartment has their key will not work anyone else's apartment. However, I don't want to burden those people by carrying a second key just to come in to where they can access their apartment, to come in the entrance door to access their individual apartment. So that access door that accesses all the apartments, I can put X1X, which means I cross key all keys in the system to it. Now, everyone can use their individual apartment key to open that entrance door to come in, but when they get to their apartment door, they don't have to worry because only their key fits the apartment. This isn't used that much anymore in that situation with the advent of push button access control locks, standalone locks, and them coming down in price. So for less than, when people want too much cross keying at a facility or too much cross keying where there's going to be problem with unintended keys working, I just tell them put a push button access control. You can get them for under $500. That will allow 300 people to work. Give 300 people different codes. So with the advent of access control locks lowering in price, we can you can put that instead of too much cross keying. However, there is one type of cylinder that you need. This is called Mason mastering. It's a French term, means the house key. X1X is Mason mastering. So here's where we're using it. This is current situation. In the K-12 environment, there's what's called classroom security levers. If you notice the lever at the top is the outside teacher. Anyone who has to come in would turn their key to come into the door. Now, a classroom function lock means this. A classroom function lock does not have a key on the inside or a push button on the inside. A classroom function lock has to be locked, left unlocked, or left lock. It's binary. It's either or by use of the key from the outside. However, because of classroom security needs to be increased because of school shootings and so forth, we now put the key on the inside also. Now, because of life safety, you cannot lock that inside lever down. That always remains open. But what this does is this allows the teacher to put the key in, and you'll notice the word lock at the bottom picture. It tells the teacher which way to turn the key. And when the teacher turns the key in the lock position, that will lock the outside lever, because if the teacher hears commotion in the hallway and needs to protect the students, they don't have to open the door to lock the outside lever. You may say to yourself, why isn't there just a push button there? Because if there was a push button there, then the teacher doesn't control if the door is locked or unlocked. The students could control that. With the key, now the teacher controls it. So the outside of the classroom door would be keyed to AA1 as normal. However, the inside classroom door, this is not security. This is convenience. You would key this to X1X. I would want all keys in the system fitting the inside classroom door. The reason is, what if the teacher had to go to the bathroom? What if the teacher had to go run an errand in another part of the school and another administrator came in to watch their classroom? Just because the administrator didn't have a key to come into that door, they wouldn't be able to lock the outside lock in case of an emergency. That's why it behooves you to make the inside of the classroom door, you want to key it to X1X, where all keys in the system will operate it. Now, This is just a chart to show you that all master key systems are finite. It's not Burger King. You don't get what you want. There are limitations depending on the manufacturer on how many biddings, how many changes you can get. Now, this is a whole nother class in itself, but I put this on there to lead up into the next what I want to explain about keys. You can see if I'm progressing 6 chambers in a double step system, I can get one master key and 4,096 changes. In a single step system, I can get one master key and 15,625 changes. Which is powerful is if I have a 7-pin lock, 7-pin cylinder, my changes exponentially increase. I showed you this because I wanted to make it clear that master key systems were finite. In fact, single step systems didn't come out until the 60s, 1960s. So in order to overcome master keying limitations, manufacturers came up with multiplex key systems. These systems allow a master key system to increase exponentially. All manufacturers have this for right now, but as an example, I will use the Sargent L series. LA, LB, and LC are keyways. Same with these, same with LJ, K, and L. These are individual keyways. Now, the LD key, the LH key, and the LM key are keyways that will bypass their respective individual keyways. At the top of the list is the LN keyway. And this would be your top master keyway. The LN will bypass all the cylinders above it. So as you can see, if I put biddings of 654, 231 on an LA key blank, and I put the same biddings on an LE key blank, they will not work each other because an LA will not go in an LE and vice versa. None of the top non-keyways will go in each other, so you can exponentially increase the system, because if I put the same biddings, it's okay, they won't go into each other. Now, if it was left at that, that would be okay. But there comes a problem, because I don't know, the Sargent L series is not restricted or it's not patented. Many multiplex key systems are not restricted or patented. So you set up a new brand, say you set up a hospital on this, and a nurse decides she or he has been issued their LE key, and they don't want to take a chance of losing it, even though they were told only come to the facility if you need an extra key. They don't want to take a chance on losing it, so they go to a hardware store or an unscrupulous locksmith shop. The good locksmith shops don't do this. She walks in, or he walks in with their LE key, and they want to get a duplicate key. However, it costs a lot of money to keep all the multiplex key systems from all the manufacturers in stock. That's not what they do. They keep this in stock. So if somebody walks in with an individual L series, instead of cutting it on the proper blank, they cut it on the top master key blank, which over time destroys a master key system, because now this nurse's key, instead of just going in an LE cylinder, will now go in any cylinder in the hospital. That is the problem with multiplex key systems. Another issue is Unauthorized key duplication. This has been one of the major worries or concerns of individuals that have keys is when they give their keys to somebody, that person will go get an unauthorized key. Well, you at least have to use to get a person's key to get an unauthorized key made. Now you don't even have to do that. If somebody throws their keys on their desk, you can walk by with your phone, scan their key, and in a couple of days have all the keys on their key ring shipped to you. That's a major problem. So one way to prevent this is through utility patented keyways. Patent key control is the only way to protect against unauthorized key duplication because it is illegal. It's not illegal to duplicate the key. It is illegal to acquire a patented blank unless you're authorized to do so. Now, there's two types of patents, a utility and a design. The design patent will not hold up in court. The utility patent will, but it requires something of a key. You see, the US Patent Office a few years ago, many years ago, decided they are not going to issue a utility patent on a key blank anymore. That's because all key blanks have been used up. There's nothing you can do with a piece of metal that hasn't already been done. So the US Patent Office, and this is their words, they said your key, in order to get a utility patent, must have another functionality. So as an example here, you'll notice the ASA key has a sidebar. You'll notice the Medico key has a notch in the side of the key. That interacts with a slider. That means this has another functionality. Now, the difference between patented and restricted is, depending on how you file the patent is only good for between 20 or either 17 or 20 years. Once the patent runs out, that means aftermarket companies are able to manufacture those blanks. However, if a patent runs out, as you can see, the pyramid at the top, the sergeant's signature, and the Medico key mark, ASA Abloy companies will always hold the restriction. There's still 100-year-old Yale key blanks that you still cannot buy. So ASA Abloy will always hold the restriction on their companies. However, manufacturers, aftermarket manufacturers, are able to make the blanks legally now. But it doesn't mean they will. The reason why we always hold the restriction, I'll use Medico as an example. When Medico came out with Biaxal, there's a few hundred keyways. When the patent ended, did aftermarket companies pick up and make some keyways? Yes, they did. 3. So the reason why we always hold the restriction is because aftermarket companies are only going to pick up a few of the popular keyways, not all of them. So in order to maintain your security in Masterkeying, in order to maintain the integrity of your system, you always want to make sure you have at least restricted keyways, at the best patented keyways. Well, that is the end of today's presentation. I thank you for your time. I'm going to be on the line for a couple of minutes if there's any questions. And like I said, within 24 hours, you'll be getting a certificate that you were in attendance of the class. If you need to think of if you think of a question and you would like to email me, my email address is guy.robinson@asaabloy.com. We have a question right here. The question is, if I have a group of openings in SKD1, but they also want key AB7 to open those openings, how would that work? Well, you can key it. Well, usually the SKD is completely different. You're going to be mixing different numbers. You can do it, but now that opening's not SKD any longer. It's part of the master key system. So determine, and I don't know, you didn't tell me whether this was a single step or a double step system. So I would have to know if it's a single or a double step system. If you would like to email me the biddings, and I could tell you if that's a good idea, or I can also email back to you how you would do it, please email me at guy.robinson@asaabloy.com. Here, let me write it here. Okay, it's guy.robinson@asaabloy.com, and I'll be able to look at it in more detail.